Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and coming at you with sort of a random review. I know I've been doing random ones lately. I know I have marathons to get to, but this is a film that it's been on my watch list. I don't own this. It's on Netflix, but it's a remake, I believe from 2018. Yeah. It's a remake of a film that I really enjoy. I've always loved. I didn't love it at first, but it grew on me. Now I love it. And it's already been remade once, and now it's another remake. And that is 2018's Day of the Dead Bloodline, which makes it sound like a sequel because it has a subtitle, but no, it's a remake. It's a remake of George Romero's 1985 classic Day of the Dead. I love this film. This is one of my favorite zombie films. It's probably, next to Dead Alive, the goriest zombie film there is. In my opinion, it is the best. It has the most and most realistic and best gore effects of all of Romero's Dead films. Even the original three. Because you have both Tom Savini and K&B working on this. So that's excellent. And it was remade in 2008 with Day of the Dead. Which, it says the need to feed. But I'm guessing that's the the tagline, because it's not anywhere else. But yeah, this movie is a piece of shit. I mean, even that cover is fucking terrible. And this is Day of the Dead in name only. Yeah, you have the friendly zombie. Yeah, you have military. One of them is even named Captain Rhodes, but he's in it for like 2 tiny-ass scenes, played by Ving Rhames. And towards the end, you get somewhat of an underground bunker or compound. Barely, extremely bare minimal to be a Day of the Dead remake. This film is not much better. Oh, what the hell did I just do? I didn't want to do that. I will say it's... Oh, there we go. That works. Actually, the best thing I can say about this, the best thing about this movie is that original poster. I love that poster. It has a vintage look to it. Looks like a Romero, because they used the same font, Day of the Dead. Has like an 80s, 70s, 80s feel to it. I can say this film is more of a remake than this. But this is not that good of a movie either. It was directed... I know I'm pausing, not really, I'm all over the place. Action horror film. I wouldn't really call it action. The director, I can't even click on. Hector Hernandez Vicens, probably pronounced that wrong. Written by Mark Tonderai and Lars Jacobson. What else is Mark Tonderai? He directed television series The Five, which was on Sky One. House at the End of the Street in 2012. A movie called Hush in 2008. Dog Eat Dog, which is a comedy. And then a bunch of television. He directed episodes of Gotham. Episodes of Doctor Who in the 2018 series. He directed Gotham and Lucifer. Castle Rock. Anyway, and I don't need to know. I literally have a list in front of me. I don't need to know everything he's directed. Now, The other things I can give this film is, okay, it has practical effects. Not 100% of the time. When there's a lot of shit going on, I mean, zombie bites, you know, blood spurting, guts, everything, that's practical. When it's very minimal, it's all poor CGI that doesn't even make sense. I mean, hell, there's even a scene where someone gets shot and the spatter on another character's face, and then the character, like, yells at someone. That spatter is CGI. And it's obvious CGI. But I will say that the practical effects look decent. The practical effects actually look pretty well done. In fact, the budget for this says $10 million. I'm guessing that's where all of it went. Other than, there is one scene where a major character gets killed and the pool of blood around him is CGI. But, and the practical, you know, the guts and everything are practical. But most of the time, if the CGI is mixed with the practical effects, it doesn't look that bad. It's not as obvious. There's even a scene with a CGI mouse. Like, they go into this abandoned building and there's a mouse. They can't go to a pet store and get a brown mouse for $4. Really? I used to feed them to my python. You can get brown mice. So, the movie opens up with this. The opening is awesome. It's in this city, just zombie carnage, guts and neck bites and spurts, and the zombies run. They walked in this. They ran in this, but they also climbed walls like Spider-Man. So that movie's out. But the zombies run in this. Thank you. I like zombies that run. Okay, we've had these, and I understand that that's a whole other video, whether zombies can run or not. And here it is a virus. It does kill you. Actually, it doesn't even really go that in depth with it. People say they can feel themselves turning, or at least one character does. It does cause by a bite. You do have to kill it with, you know, a headshot. And we follow this one woman. Now, the lead actress is Sophie Skelton, who she was in the Starz drama Outlander, which I never saw. Other films, Another Mother's Son and 211. I don't know what those are. A bunch of shows I've never heard of. So this is the only thing I've seen her in. But it also says awards and nominations for what? All Best Actress of some sort. With the biggest one being a Saturn Award. She must have been given poor direction in this film because she is either completely dead-face and dry or just, like, she has two modes. Just, we have to do this. It's the only way we can. Or a couple times she'll scream. But there's even a part where a zombie runs up against the window of the Humvee she's in. She screams, but then she's like right at him. Which in this, they're not zombies, they're not undead, they're not infected, they're not walkers, they're rotters. They call them rotters. Okay. Yeah, further distance yourself from the source material that you're a remake of. So, we see her, we jump to 4 hours before, so we think, okay, this film's going to take place in 4 hours. This Sophie Skelton is a med student. Eventually, there's a party with all these med students. But she gets this patient that comes in that does routine blood donations. His name is Max, and he's played by Jonathan Skaich, who's been in a number of things. Nothing I've Seen, 8mm 2, Remake of Prom Night. He was in one of the firemen in Quarantine. Okay. And a bunch of television. Oh, he was in Crisis. He played Jonah Hex on Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2 in Batwoman on TV. And Jonah Hex in Legends of Tomorrow. He plays this guy, Max, who is obsessed with Sophie Skelton, whose character's name is Zoe. Madly in love with her, infatuated, just doesn't even take a hint when she rejects him. He rolls up his sleeve and finds that he's got Zoe freshly carved into his arm. Huge red flag, but of course she doesn't call anyone. She doesn't tell anyone. He then proceeds to attempt to rape her because she says she rejects him. And I guess he routinely gives blood because he has a lot of antibodies. Which I guess will sort of set up the remake of this classic character. Somehow a corpse comes back, the corpse that we were seeing the lectured autopsy of earlier. Grabs Max, bites him, carries him off screen, and then imagine the opening to the collection, but with zombies. And then we jump 5 years later, and basically it's just, okay, we have Zoe, we have a few other characters that don't even fucking matter. Her boyfriend, played by Marcus Vanko, plays Baca Salazar, which, if that name sounds stupid, one, it is, but Salazar was Nick Cannon's character's name in this, so they're even referencing this fucking film. His brother, Miguel Salazar, played by Jeff Gum, he's the Captain Rhodes character. He's that asshole, villainous captain of the military. It's this walled-off military compound that there's some civilians, but not many. And, you know, Zoe's doing some sort of a medical research. This one girl has, I think, the flu, so they go out to find supplies. That's where Max shows up. He's a rotter, and he shows himself the Zoe carve because he recognizes her, and he doesn't bite her. And so that's when he doesn't bite. His body he must be some sort of hybrid. He's conscious to some level. So that's when they chain him up to the wall, and we get the Bub character. Now, I'm sorry. There's one way to do Bub, and that's with Bub. They tried it with this character, Bud, but the friendly zombie in this, it was because he was a vegetarian, and it carried over after he turned. This is like a Mark Wahlberg Fear type obsession, which defeats the purpose of this film, the whole message to this film. The fact that this zombie who refuses to bite, refuses to bite the doctor is because he's taught him things, and he feeds him. That's why when he grabs his hand, when he fixes his headphones, he lets him go. He trusts him. When you make it a vegetarian or a psychotically obsessed guy, You take away the fact that, okay, the zombies can be taught and the humans will destroy themselves. That's this movie. That works. That's interesting. Here is just, okay, he's just this obsessed boyfriend wannabe. So they, just like this film, totally missed the point. There's like, okay, we gotta have a chained up friendly zombie somehow. And he's not even friendly, he's still a psycho. And there's really not much to the film. I mean, I can say it's fairly fast-paced for a 90-minute film. It does move at a steady pace. Of course, the Captain Rhodes wannabe Miguel is always saying, you know, he's always, there's even a scene where he's face to face with this Max character, zombie, similar to, you know, Bob and Rhodes in the original. And of course, she has to bring in more of these rotters to do more research, you know, compare blood to try to make a vaccine. And no, this movie is not anti-vaccine or anything. It actually makes sense because they're not trying to find a cure for the zombies. They're just like, make a vaccine so if anyone gets bit, we don't have to, you know, we can one-up the virus in one way. Which, you know, I mean, that's a time when the world is shit and most people are zombies and they find a vaccine, you're gonna get it. I think it's mandatory at that point. That this is a political show. And there they barely followed the steps to the original because, of course, while getting more test zombies, it doesn't work. Which in that one, in the original, yeah, there's this guy that lets the zombies in. Which I'm guessing the Baca character, the younger brother to the captain, is sort of like the character on this film who's dating Lori Cardile. And he's the one that lets the zombies in to kill everyone. Because the zombies kill just about everyone here, except the children for some reason. And, you know, it ends in the sunlight in paradise. Well, not paradise, they're still at the compound, but this is one of the few zombie movies I've seen where, okay, they went through with the vaccine. They came through with some sort of cure. I'll give it that. But, and even though this is not a good movie, because a lot of the acting is bad. I mean, the best actor would be the zombies. I mean, the way they run, their body movements, I liked. The guy who plays Max does kind of do a lot of, like, which I'm guessing you kind of have to, but I thought he did all right. The zombies were the best actors. The Sophie Skelton was absolutely awful. Her voiceovers, like when she describes what's happening or her, you know, her hypothesis for the vaccine is incredibly dry and uninteresting. She's not a good lead. I found her just incredibly boring. There are plenty of scenes with, you know, zombies, zombie attacks, zombie mayhem. The end tries to do the whole, like, zombies in the compound eating everyone. Even with the Miguel guy getting ripped open by everyone, by a number of them. Not as memorable as Joe Pilato getting ripped up, yelling choke on him. Again, this movie is a fucking classic. But, you know, he is the asshole. He does get ripped up. I have to give the movie credit. It is more of a remake than this. But somehow, it made like $750,000 at the box office, so it was an incredible flop. Even though this has an abysmal rating on Rotten Tomatoes, this film has a 0. It doesn't deserve a 0, I don't think. I thought it was miles better than this film. At least the gore, when it mattered, was practical. A lot of, like, when this one woman gets shot and it spatters on Zoe's face, that's CGI. When Miguel gets ripped up and then we see his body after, the blood around him is CGI. This other woman soldier gets bit, the viscera on the neck and the blood spurting out is CGI. It does look poor, and yet there's even a mouse that's CGI, which doesn't make sense. But the big gore scenes are practical. I do give it that. You do get some, you know, like stretchy bites or intestines getting ripped out, some legs or arms snapping. I give it that. I did enjoy it way more than this film. I thought the newer version of Bub, although still pretty poor, was better than in this film. But nowhere near as memorable or as smartly written as in this. They just made him the asshole, psycho, lover, rapist, again, the obsessed rapist, you know, boyfriend wannabe. Not the notion that zombies can be taught if humans never learn their lesson, like in this film. And I also don't even know why it's called Bloodline, because it has nothing to do with, you know, ancestors or descendants or anything like that. Maybe it's just because Bloodline, along with Returns or Resurrection or Judgment or Resurgence, is just a stupid cliche subtitle for a sequel or remake. And I do love that poster. Which, the first still I saw of Max as a zombie with the smile, I thought he was going to be played by Roach from People Under the Stairs. But I still love that poster. Yeah, it's a cheesy, cheap, crappy movie. But there is a scene where there's a zombie that's like dead and the maggots in his eyes and mouth are CGI. And I don't know if this zombie is a nod to the jawless zombie in the beginning of this. But there's one that like walks in front of the screen, his eyes hanging out, his jaws like hanging, and he like screams. Maybe that's their nod to that. I like the look of the zombies. The zombie actors, their body movements, I thought worked well. I can give it credit there. I give it credit for more resemblances to story than in this. It's still just not that good of a movie. So there, we have the first remake in 2008. We have this remake 10 years later, 2018. Can we leave this poor dead horse alone? It's already sad enough that towards the end of his life, George Romero had a hard time getting his ideas to come to light. But anytime someone wanted to do a remake or an unofficial sequel, they're like, oh, Romero, let's not. Oh, someone wants to do something related to Romero? Okay. I mean, George Romero, legend. May he rest in peace. Can we leave his stuff alone now, please? I mean, we got lucky with Night of the Living Dead in 1990. Got really lucky with still my favorite Zack Snyder film. One of only 2 films I like by Snyder. Dawn of the Dead in 2004. Can we just leave it as it may? Just leave it. We have this. It's a classic. Yes, this is technically a better remake of this, or than this, but not by much. But anyway, yeah, that is Day of the Dead Bloodline. Better than 2008, but still a crappy movie. Thank you for watching.